I'm sorry. Did you think it was over? Because it's not. Right? Absolutely. Where we last left off, the board is set. Aurelian has recently been crowned emperor. He is now stuck in a little bit of a quagmire. There are, of course, the factions in Palmyra. You have the Sassanid emperor, king of kings. You have usurpers within the Roman Empire. You have foul barbarians invading, and then you have the Gallic Empire as well. Only one man can save the world. His name is Aurelian. So let's enjoy this video and check it out in 3, a 2, and an 1.
To strengthen the image and power of her regime, Queen Zenobia skillfully played the political game. She exploited the turmoil in Rome, but was careful not to provoke a war with the new emperor. Her mints at Antioch and Alexandria recognized Aurelian as emperor, producing...
Oh, she's trying to kiss up to him. She's trying to use her womanly charms like Cleopatra did to Caesar and Mark Antony.
Coins in his name. But she also now struck coins bearing the face of her son Vaballathus, honoring him as imperator, a military title of republican origins that was now associated with emperors. In this way, Zenobia gave him imperial status, whilst cleverly avoiding the title of Augustus, which would have unambiguously designated him as emperor, blatantly challenging Aurelian's authority. Roman mints were spread widely across the empire, and emperors used them to make political statements to their subjects. The populace often learned of a new Roman emperor when coins appeared with his portrait. Thus, the circulation of coins bearing Vaballathus's face undoubtedly solidified his authority over the Palmyrene domain, but it was also an encroachment on Aurelian's authority. Zenobia's power play extended further. Her coins bore inscriptions that recorded the number of years that Vaballathus had ruled the East, thereby showing that he had been in power longer than the emperor, as if to suggest her son's seniority over Aurelian.
That, lady, is how you get a visit from a Roman army.
Coupled with this web of political intrigue, Zenobia began the expansion of her army and moved into Asia Minor. She captured Tyana in Cappadocia and Ancyra in Galatia, and attempted to seize Chalcedon in Bithynia, which resisted and remained loyal to Aurelian. With this show of force, the queen wanted to hinder any offensive by the emperor, while she also played the long game, slowly building up the power of her realm. But despite the Palmyrene expansion further hindering the empire's reunification, the Gothic problem in the Balkans remained unresolved, and Aurelian's own position was far from stable. The first order of business for the emperor was to strengthen his rule in the territories that were still under central control. Aurelian was an exceptional leader of armies, and he campaigned with unmatched energy. In 270, he stopped a Jutungian invasion of northern Italy, fighting a series of actions before defeating them in a decisive battle on the Danube.
Good.
He caught them in the middle of crossing the river, weighed down with plunder and prisoners.
Good.
However, while he was consolidating his power in Italy, the Pannonian frontier was left vulnerable to attack, and an army of Vandals crossed the river in force, pillaging the region. Later that year, he tasked Placidianus with defending Italy against a possible attack by the Gallic Empire, before departing east to set up his headquarters in Siscia. It was here that he assumed his consulship on New Year's Day, 271 AD.
Hey, what a good way to end. We're watching this just a few days before 2024 ends. All right, Aurelian is crowned on New Year's Day. There's our emperor, folks. That's our guy.
This office would normally have been assumed at Rome, and it was unusual for an emperor to assume the consulship without even setting foot in the old capital. This was a further sign of the diminishing role of Rome in imperial pomp at this time. By now, the season had advanced, making it difficult for the Vandals to live off the land, and knowing that the enemy was not equipped for siege warfare, Aurelian evacuated the livestock and food supplies into the fortified cities. Once he was
Kill them. Make them starve.
satisfied that the war of attrition had weakened the barbarians and that his own supply lines were established, he marched to meet the Vandals. The campaign was a grueling affair, but after an indecisive first battle, the barbarians were subsequently defeated in the Pannonian interior. The Vandals sued for peace, handing over hostages and providing 2,000 horsemen for the Roman army.
There we go.
And the Romans provided them with supplies for their journey back to the Danube.
All right, fine. You could be nice just a little bit.
The emperor, however, had little respite in which to savor his victory, and in early 271 he was forced to march back west. The Itungi had returned, this time probably with a coalition of other Germanic tribes, launching a major invasion of Italy. They destroyed numerous towns and countryside in the Po Valley before pushing south, threatening Rome itself. At first, Aurelian's army suffered an ambush at Placentia, but he managed to regroup his battered army and follow the trail of devastation that marked the enemy's route down the Adriatic coast. Knowing that the Romans were on their heels, the barbarians stayed on the march, aiming to cross the Apennines towards the capital. But Aurelian managed to catch up with them. On the banks of the Metaurus River, he achieved a major victory in the Battle of Fano. Subsequently, he pushed the invaders back across the Po River before dealing a crushing defeat to the Itungi in the Battle of Ticinum.
Good. Again. We approve of these actions.
The victory broke the strength of the tribes along the upper Danube and put an end to Germanic invasions against Italy until the times of Alaric in the 400s, nearly 150 years later. Meanwhile, the invasion caused panic in Rome itself, and this, combined with the endemic corruption, had sparked a major rebellion against the emperor. Aurelian force-marched his army to the capital, defeated the rebels and executed the conspirators, using the crisis to purge the political landscape of his rivals as well, many of whom had supported Quintilius. Usurpers in Dalmatia and southern Gaul, seeking to exploit the chaos, were either defeated in battle or assassinated, and construction began on a massive new system of walls to better protect the capital.
Good.
But again...
And they will never break. The Aurelian walls will never, ever break.
Aurelian had no time to waste. After briefly overseeing work on the new defenses, the emperor marched back east to the Balkans. Due to his elevation to the purple and the resulting power struggle in Rome, the Gothic War remained unfinished business. And now the ranks of marauding bands had
noticed there's a sickness, the virus of the barbarian invasion,
swelled, posing a great menace to Thrace. They were led by King Canabas. This Goth was possibly none other than King Cniva, who had famously destroyed the army of the Emperor Decius at the Battle of Abratus 20 years prior, an event etched in the memory of the Romans. By the time Aurelian arrived with his army, the Goths had already inflicted considerable damage. But, in a stunning twist, the Roman Emperor inflicted on them a crushing defeat. However, unlike his predecessors, he did not stop there. Rather, crossing the Danube, he invaded their homeland and scored a decisive victory over King Canabas, who was killed in combat.
And on top of that, that's the last time he's ever going to be bothering Rome again. So there you go. See? Aurelian's handling things very heroically. Well done, Aurelian. A commander I could follow. We are so back.
The Roman army then proceeded to sack Gothic settlements and lay waste to their lands. And in a planned propaganda move, countless captive women were deported to Rome to be later displayed dressed as Amazons in Aurelian's.
I mean, no, that's not good, right? It's not good. Not good. There you go.
Triumph. This was the most decisive victory a Roman army had in this region throughout the trial.
By the way, I just want to say, well done, soldiers. You're making the Legion proud. Type in the comment section below, this true Roman legionnaire is ready to save the world.
Troubled 3rd century. Then, in a radical rethinking of regional strategy, the emperor withdrew Rome's military and administrative presence from Dacia. The province had been weakly garrisoned since the reign of Gallienus. By abandoning it altogether, Aurelian could rationalize the long and undermanned Danubian frontier from which he collected troops, and repopulate the Balkans, devastated by war, with the people he evacuated from Dacia. Now, he was ready to retake the east.
There we go.
Following the victory over the Goths in the Balkans, the flagging morale of the Roman forces had been restored, and with a
now morale is superior.
Structured Danubian
Get off my lawn!
Frontier, Aurelian could now muster strong field armies for the campaigns ahead, without compromising the empire's security. The emperor wintered in Byzantium, making preparations for the upcoming war with Zenobia.
Yeah, that city, Byzantium. You know, it seems like really in a good strategic spot. There's something about Byzantium just tells me it's going to be a city that we should all know, but only rename once. And never again.
And ensuring that the borders would be protected in his absence. Considerable manpower was allocated to defend the Balkans against the tribes from across the Danube. Troops were stationed in Italy to prevent a possible return of the Alemanni and the Irtungi. And in Narbonese Gaul, a substantial presence of imperial troops was required to guard against the Gallic Empire. By spring 272, Aurelian had mustered his own army in Thrace and had completed all preparations. Zenobia, seeing that war with Aurelian was now inevitable, had her son Vaballathus declared Augustus, and had herself proclaimed Augusta, the
Okay. All right. Playtime's over.
traditional title of a Roman empress. But because of the Palmyrene failure to secure Bithynia, Aurelian was easily able to secure a bridgehead and march into Asia. He sent a second force to make a naval landing in Egypt under the talented Marcus Aurelius Probus, the future emperor.
I mean, yeah, seems all right, but why do you have to say future emperor? I thought we're going to save the world, not destroy a time. You know, I mean, Aurelian's still emperor, okay? Nothing bad's going to happen to him, period.
The logistical planning and execution of this invasion marked Aurelian as one of the greatest military thinkers of the 3rd century AD. His plan was a pincer movement on a massive scale, a true masterclass in strategic warfare.
Yes.
Aurelian's war against Zenobia had two objectives. The first was to recapture those parts of the empire over which Zenobia had recently established her dominion. The most important of these were the wealthy provinces of Asia Minor, with their significant tax contribution to the coffers of the imperial government, and Egypt, with its vital supply of grain. The Mediterranean area of Syria, particularly the city of Antioch, was of secondary but still considerable importance. The Emperor's second objective was to eliminate Zenobia.
Wanted. Dead or just plain dead. Zenobia the bad. Yes, she's bad. For trying to be more powerful than me. Shame on her.
And to reduce the power of Palmyra so as to avoid a repeat of this dangerous situation. However, Aurelian knew that Syria would be heavily defended and that a prolonged war there was possible. This would prevent him from reaching Egypt by land, which he urgently needed to recover to secure a steady flow of grain, as well as revenues from the Red Sea trade.
Yeah, we need that gold, we need that bread.
This was the main reason for his ambitious naval invasion to open a second front. The Roman fleet reached the Nile Delta sometime in the spring of 272. Very little is known about the campaign itself. Upon making landfall, Probus initially fought with success, but was then nearly captured. Further reinforcements helped him gain a foothold against the Palmyrene garrison, and by early June, Alexandria was safely back in Aurelian's control. Probus then began operations to retake the rest of Egypt. Meanwhile, after crossing into Asia Minor, the advancing Roman column was triumphantly welcomed by the inhabitants of Bithynia, who had successfully resisted Zenobia's domination. In Galatia, any Palmyrene troops stationed there were certainly not numerous enough to stop Aurelian's army.
Exactly. Run. Run as fast as you can. Get away from us right now.
And they quickly withdrew to the southeast, bringing valuable intelligence about Aurelian's advance.
No. Stupid eyeball. Agent Eyeball. My nemesis.
With the loose Palmyrene hegemony evaporating before him, the emperor was welcomed without a struggle by the citizens of Ancyra, the provincial capital. After making sure that his supply lines were secure, from here he proceeded southeast towards the Cilician Gates, a chasmic pass through the Taurus Mountains that connected the Anatolian Plateau with the Cilician Plains and Syria beyond. However, before he could reach the pass, his route took him to the town of Tyana in Cappadocia, which was strategically located along the route to Syria. The town refused to open its gates.
Excuse me, you better open those gosh darn gates and become true Romans again.
But Aurelian could not afford to leave a hostile garrison along his lines of supply. Angered, he ordered the city besieged, pledging that he would not leave even a dog alive once the city had fallen.
That's a pledge. Well, hold on. All dogs go to heaven, and all dogs are true Romans. Nothing bad's going to happen to the dogs, right? I don't want to tell them.
Desirous of plunder, his soldiers pursued the siege with all the more determination. The machine-like manner with
I'm digging the siege weaponry.
which the Romans slowly choked the city over the course of several weeks spread fear among some sections of the population. With the pressure mounting, Tyana capitulated when one of the frightened residents betrayed the city to the emperor by showing to him a weakness in the wall. The capital of Cappadocia was now in the emperor's hands. But Aurelian thought better of his previous intention to massacre Tyana. With an insight rare among 3rd century emperors, he realized that sparing the city would set a precedent far more potent in the coming conflict. He ordered his army not to harm Tiana, thus presenting himself to the populace as a
There you go. Citizens, you're free to be ruled by me. That's right, Aurelian.
liberator rather than a conqueror. But his troops were none too pleased. They expected to be allowed to plunder the city and angrily demanded that Aurelian stand by his promise. This was indeed a dangerous move. Amidst the heightened political military tensions of the 3rd century, many an emperor and usurper were lynched by their own soldiers.
This is not how a true Roman army should react to the main protagonist and hero of the world.
For refusing plunder. That Aurelian managed to survive this encounter reflects his ability to foster strong relations with his soldiers at a time when armies were prone to rebellion against their commanders. Not allowing himself to be intimidated by his men, the emperor admitted that he had indeed ordered that no dog in Tiana be allowed to live. Accordingly,
Where's Fido? Bark!
he ordered his soldiers to kill all dogs in the city. The anger of the soldiers was dispelled by their laughter at this response. Aurelian went on to explain his decision to the troops. "We waged war to free these cities. If we pillage them, they will never trust us." This display of sound political judgment showed that he understood that Zenobia was a formidable foe, and that he had better chances of defeating her through clemency rather than terror. With the capture of Tiana, the way to Syria now lay open. Aurelian's army marched into Cilicia without resistance, likely passing through Tarsus, the provincial capital, before heading east through Issus, where Alexander the Great had won his famous victory over the Persians.
And now, instead of Alexander the Great, it is Aurelian the Restorer who will save the world.
From here, the Roman emperor reached the port of Alexandretta. Although he had gained control over Asia Minor with relative ease, before him now lay Syria, the heartland of Palmyrene power. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Probus managed to topple the resistance and regain control of the province. He then proceeded to march towards the Levant. He pressed
All right, Probus. Keep at it. Keep on probing.
the Palmyrenes from the south and perhaps secured the loyalty of the Cyrenian 3rd Legion in Arabia,
Good.
which had been previously subdued and its general killed by Zenobia. To address this, Zabdas detached a considerable force in anticipation of Probus's advance on Palmyra. Having lost Alexandria, the queen now had one remaining mint under her control in Antioch. Knowing that this would be Aurelian's first objective in Syria, it was here that she and her generals stationed Palmyra's forces in preparation for the Roman advance.
All right, here's where we get ready to boot up and suit up. All right. First round. Let's go. Zabdas, you're done.
Aurelian's army consisted of legionary detachments drawn from Rhaetia, Noricum, Pannonia, and Moesia, as well as Praetorians and Moorish and Dalmatian cavalry,
I don't trust those Praetorians.
who served as elite mounted units. Zabda's army consisted of Palmyrenes and other Syrians, but also various other Roman units that had declared their loyalty to Queen Zenobia's family. Palmyra's greatest advantage over Aurelian's army was their Klebanari, or super-heavy cavalry. These mounted units were better armored and more numerous than Aurelian's Dalmatians and Moors. The Roman emperor began crossing over the mountains. He had received unwelcome reports that the Palmyrene lay between him and Antioch. Zabdas drew up his army in the Orontes plain on the western side of the Lake of Antioch to the north of the city. Here he could intercept Aurelian's advance along the road from Alexandretta at a narrow point where the flat terrain was especially well suited to the battle tactics of the Palmyrene heavy mailed cavalry. However, Aurelian refused to fight Zabdas on the battlefield of his own choosing. Knowing that a direct assault would be to surrender operational and tactical advantage to the enemy, he instead decided to march to the east of the lake, seeking to outflank the Palmyrene position. This maneuver had 3 advantages. First, the Palmyrenes anticipated a frontal assault from the north and might become confused by an attack from their rear. Second, he would block the enemy's line of retreat to the east, and if he could reach the city, he could also close off the road leading south. Lastly, the terrain south of the lake was less suited to Zabda's formidable cataphracts.
Ah, see? Our boy using big brain tactics. That's our commander. Our one and true emperor. The hero of the world.
However, the Palmyrene general got wind of Aurelian's maneuver. Having already stationed a small contingent to guard the road to Beroia, he sent his elite heavy cavalry to bolster their ranks. He could ill afford to lose his line of retreat, so it was imperative that they intercept Aurelian's army on the plain to the east of the lake before they could reach the hilly terrain further south, where his cavalry would be at a disadvantage. The Emperor's scouts soon brought back reports of Palmyrene movements. Realizing he had lost the element of surprise, Aurelian led most of his cavalry ahead of the main body of the army. He was well aware of the fearsome reputation of the Clibanarii and did not want to risk his infantry against Zabdas's heavy cavalry. It was a hot June morning. The Roman Emperor marched at pace well ahead of the rest of the army, with a cavalry contingent of around 5,000 strong, hoping to outflank Zabdas at Antioch. With him, he had the veteran Dalmatian and Moorish light cavalry, which had been under Aurelian's command for a number of years before he became emperor, serving as the elite cavalry arm of the Roman army. They were a tactically astute branch of the military, capable of executing battle plans across vast distances with precision, and had participated in numerous campaigns, often being the deciding factor in major engagements.
Come on, Romans.
However, Aurelian found that his way was blocked by the Palmyrene heavily armored cavalry, arrayed on the Antioch-Beroia road. Zabdas's cataphracts were of even better quality than Aurelian's Dalmatians.
Come on now, video. Don't be saying things that'll confuse the audience.
And Moors. These troops had been forged in the fire of the Persian Wars and perhaps represented the very pinnacle of cavalry warfare in the 3rd century AD. It is likely that Zabdas fielded up to 5,000 of these troops at Immae, but their exact strength and composition remains unclear. The Palmyrenes traditionally used light cavalry and dromedary archers, so it is possible that these heavy cavalry units were not local and were in fact cataphracts of the Roman army in the east, which were controlled by Queen Zenobia. Rome employed such units as an answer to Persian cataphracts, and they would have been controlled by Zenobia's husband before he was assassinated. This further confirms that the conflict between Rome and Palmyra was, in fact, a civil war. Despite this, ancient sources descended from Aurelian's propaganda portrayed Palmyra as an external enemy, even though they were an integral part of the empire for centuries.
Listen, the people from Palmyra and Zenobia, they're very bad people. They're not bringing their best. They're not bringing their brightest. We're going to build a huge Aurelian wall. And Zenobia's going to pay for it.
Centuries. Further evidence of this propaganda can be seen in their portrayal of Zenobia as an Eastern barbarian, a foreigner, despite her family having senatorial status. The fact that she was of Syrian descent was clearly used against her by the central imperial government.
I'm still siding with our boy Aurelian.
Aurelian presented Zenobia's son as an illegitimate ruler, but ironically it was Aurelian himself who lacked senatorial status before he took power. He was an Illyrian...
That's fake news! That's fake news! The hero is the hero!
General who killed his way to the throne, overthrowing Quintilius, and, according to some sources, he played a role in the assassination of Emperor Gallienus. Aurelian did eventually get senatorial support, but he had earned it through brute force. Likewise, the troops from both armies used to be part of the Roman military before the war. At Immae, the two commanders fielded their best mounted contingents, both understanding the importance of the opening encounter. Around mid-morning, Aurelian gave the signal. On the other end, Zabdas rose to the challenge. Undoubtedly, the heavily armored cataphracts were encouraged, seeing the light Dalmatian and Moorish cavalry. Little did they know that Aurelian was one of the finest cavalry commanders of his time. Just before the first charge of the enemy, he instructed his men to wheel about and not risk close quarters combat with their heavier counterparts.
I know what they're trying to do here.
The light-armed cavalry feigned retreat, inviting the enemy to give chase. This encouraged the Palmyrines to press forward in anticipation of an easy victory. Whenever a minor clash occurred, Aurelian's lighter units would flee. With each charge of Zabdas's cataphracts, the nimble Dalmatians and Moors used their speed to avoid the confrontation and retreat along the main road towards the town of Immae.
Yes.
The Palmyrines pursued the Romans for several kilometers. Soon enough,
But see, the key word is it was a hot day that day. Very hot. Very hot indeed, which means if you're wearing heavy armor, you're going to start to get sweaty and hot and tired. Your horses are going to get tired. You're going to want to drink some cool water. And you ain't going to have any of that, homie.
the Syrian midday sun began taking its toll. True to the word, Clibonarius, meaning oven man, the Palmyrene Clibonari and their horses suffered in the heat, having maintained the chase in their heavy armor. Aurelian noticed the exhaustion of the enemy. On cue, he turned his cavalry and countercharged the pursuers.
Yes.
Taken by surprise, the Clibonari could not put up an effective resistance, nor flee their nimble enemy. The slaughter was terrible. The tired heavy horsemen were either slain in their saddles, or thrown off their horses and mangled by the hooves of friend and foe.
Yes.
Few managed to escape the carnage and find their way back to Antioch. Aurelian's tactics at Immae relied on the veteran Dalmatian and Moorish cavalry, their steely discipline, courage, and their ability to
The infamous Wilhelm scream.
coordinate an effective and timely counterattack after retreating a great distance. Their deadly efficiency demonstrated the Emperor's tactical expertise, as well
Good job, soldiers. Keep on laying the pressure on them. We're gonna save the world!
as his experience as a cavalry commander. In one fell swoop, he had dealt a crippling blow to Palmyra's most powerful military asset, their vaunted heavily armored cavalry. However, further to the south, the Palmyrines still possessed cavalry that far outnumbered those available to the Emperor, including a reserve of cataphracts. Aurelian knew that the battle had by no means secured the defeat of Zenobia's regime, and that the outcome of the war was yet to be decided.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to save this for part 3. All right? So here's what we're going to do. So, because we want to enjoy this, because the next episode will be just as fun. But we do want to make sure that we have, all 3 parts. So we can enjoy this as one big super adventure, because I think we're in store for a tragic ending, but maybe the timeline will be a little bit different. So what do you need to do? Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the ring bell notification, be a true Roman, eat true Roman bread, drink true Roman wine, make love to your true Roman wife, and we'll help Emperor Aurelian. You've been doing a great job, troops. Save the day. Save the world. I'll see all of you on the flip side, and I hope that you have a wonderful and safe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. See you in 2025, as I should.